Good morning. Uh, Let us start with the endocrine pharmacology because we have been discussing the other systems so far. Different glands in the body. We have exocrine glands like salivary glands, sweat glands, or even your lacrimation glands. And we also have some paracrine glands, which is responsible for the synthesis of several autocoids in the body. And then the third variety of glands are endocrine glands. So, well about it's a distinct group of cells having functional units, and these cells are responsible for the secretions of various hormones. And the hormones are the substances which are essential to regulate your body homeostasis. So, we have different hormones. All of you know that the physiology has been well discussed in the previous year, that is in the physiology classes, where we have the glands from head, that is most upper part is the hypothalamus. Below we have the gonads like ovary or even the testis in males. So in between various glands, which include your anterior pituitary, posterior pituitary, thyroid, pineal glands, and parathyroid glands. Then we have our pancreas, we have our adrenal medulla, adrenal cortex, then we have ovary, we have testes, etc. So each of these hormone producing glands are responsible for the production of distinct chemical molecules which are collectively or which are generally called as hormones. Okay, so the endocrine glands usually release the endocrine glands are the specialized cells which release the hormones or the substances, the chemical substances, which can be protein, the protein derivatives, the amino acid derivatives like thyroid hormones, or polypeptides like insulin or glucagon, or even the steroid hormones such as all your sex hormones like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, etc. So these are the chemical nature of hormones. Now these hormones are secreted from the specialized gland cells, and that can that can be released into the circulation, general circulation, or the systemic circulation, and that may take these hormones. The circulation may take that hormones into distant part of the body. So these are actually not only acting the adjacent cells, but also act on the different areas. So this is how endocrine glands and the hormone is defined. So today, of course, these hormones exert its effects by acting on the specific type of receptors. These receptors could be G protein coupled receptors or nuclear receptors or even enzyme linked tyrosine kinase receptors. And these are the basic aspects we have discussed elsewhere, including your first year physiology, biochemistry, and even in the general pharmacology part, where we had a comprehensive talk on receptors. All right. Now let's see the first part of the top, from the top to bottom. We have to consider the hypothalamus, pituitary as the top of the hormone glands. So today, let us talk about the hypothalamic and pituitary hormones. So you know well about the hormones secreted from the hypothalamus and its roles, and of course the pituitary hormones and its physiological role. Now definitely, being a pharmacology aspects, we'll be talking about the drugs which can manipulate the hypothalamic hormones and also the pituitary hormones and its clinical implications. All right. Now, one more point I wanted to emphasize here is that some of these hormones will come under the sex hormones and other part of the hormones, because those hormones from the hypothalamus are generally involved in the regulation of the synthesis and secretion of the anterior pituitary hormone, and thereby from there the target hormone, say for example TRH, thyroid releasing hormone, thyroid releasing hormone from the hypothalamus is responsible for the release of thyroid stimulating hormone from the anterior pituitary, and this is responsible for the thyroid hormone secretion. So this is I hope you understood what I am trying to tell you. This is the negative feedback mechanism which is responsible for the synthesis and secretions of most of the hormones. And of course exceptions are there, like where the insulin or glucose doesn't have this inhibitory mechanism. This hypothalamo anti-pituitary pancreatic loop mechanism is not there, but it has this distinct mechanism for the adrenal cortex, that is your glucocorticoids, or even sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, or testosterone. So all these are regulated by the hypothalamic pituitary hormone axis. All right. So today we'll be discussing about, so we have a specific learning objectives for this topic. So we have to discuss about the various hypothalamic and pituitary hormones, and second thing, we should know what are the different drugs which can alter the these hormonal functions, and third, we have to understand the pharmacological or therapeutic uses of these hormones, and the fourth one, adverse effects of these drugs. So this is what we are going to discuss by this topic. All right. So the hormones produced by hypothalamus and pituitary gland are key regulators of metabolism, growth, and reproduction. We have already discussed that the metabolism mainly, we can talk about the steroid hormone, glucocorticoids, which are involved in the metabolic function, and growth, of course, your growth hormone, and reproduction like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, etc. Preparations of these hormones are used in the treatment of variety of endocrine disorders. So, of course, you can manipulate the normal physiological cause of these hormone synthesis and secretion. Definitely, you can manipulate this. These preparations include products made from recombinant DNA technology, because most of these hormones are peptide in nature, polypeptide in nature. So this can be synthesized by recombinant DNA technology, and also some of the synthetic drugs that mimics or block the effect. So we have synthetic agents that can mimic the hormones, and also it can act as an antagonist that can block the effects of these hormones. The pituitary consists of course, I'm not going to discuss the detailed aspects of this adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis, and the other names. It is your anterior pituitary and your posterior pituitary, and this pituitary is connected to the overlying hypothalamus, the part of brain, by a stalk of neurosecretory fibers and blood vessels. I hope you remember, you still have a clear picture about the structure of pituitary and the hypothalamus. Venous system carries small regulatory hormones from the hypothalamus to the anterior pituitary. Again, I'm going to tell you that you have had a lot of learning physiology in the previous years. So just to refresh your knowledge, the pink portion is the anterior pituitary and the green shade is the posterior pituitary, and this can release growth hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, ACTH, luteinizing hormone, and FSH from the anterior pituitary. This can have a direct effect on various hormones. And the posterior pituitary is responsible for the prolactin is from anterior pituitary, oxytocin and vasopressin, or the ADH secretion. Of course, and from the hypothalamus, the overlying hypothalamus, it is released gonadotropin releasing hormone, growth hormone releasing hormone, thyroid releasing hormone, corticotropin releasing hormone, and GnRH, that is, as I told you, gonadotropin releasing hormone. So this is how the secretion. Now this schematic diagram shows the role of each hormones from the anterior pituitary and also from the hypothalamus that can have simple example. ACTH from anterior pituitary, usually it is stimulated by the CRH here, which is release the hormone. CRH is released from the hypothalamus, which stimulate the secretion of ACTH, and that will increase the secretion of adrenal corticosteroid hormone, and this is the same way applicable to the all hormones. Now let's see a summary of anterior pituitary hormone. Again, this is also an overlapping of the topic from your previous years of learning. Growth hormone and somatotropin from anterior pituitary, which is actually this is under the control of growth hormone releasing hormone, that is your GHRH, and somatostatin, which actually inhibit the secretion of growth hormone. and its target is on liver, bone, muscle, kidney and others, where it stimulates the secretion of insulin-like growth factors. So especially this is secreted from the liver and it is responsible for the growth and development. The next one is thyroid stimulating hormone, and hypothalamic counterpart is thyrotropin releasing hormone, which acts on thyroid gland and stimulate the thyroxine, triiodothyronine or T3 secretion. ACTH is from the anterior pituitary. This is under the control of corticotropin releasing hormone from hypothalamus, and a target organ is adrenal cortex for the secretion of glucocorticoids, your cortisol, hydrocortisol like hormone. Now the next one is FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and LH, luteinizing hormone, which actually under the influence of gonadotropin releasing hormone, which increase the secretion of both LH and FSH, and in males it's directly act on the testis and females on the ovary for the secretion of estrogen, progesterone and testosterone. Then prolactin is a hormone which is under the negative influence, the inhibitory effect of dopamine. Dopamine, it's a neurotransmitter, but it is also having distinct role on the prolactin secretion for secreting cells of the anterior pituitary, where dopamine inhibit the secretion of prolactin, and this can act on the breast for the milk secretion. So administration of target hormones or their synthetic analogs is easier than the hypothalamic and pituitary hormones. See, we don't use the thyroid TSH because we have thyroid hormone as such. It can directly impart the metabolic process or the pharmacological or the physiological effects of thyroid hormone. So it is quite easy to get. So why should you go for stimulating the thyroid hormone for the secretion? It could be like there are various reasons for the deficiency of these hormones. So it depends. So usually the final hormones are substituted in most of the cases. So TRH, TSH, CRH, ACTH and GnRH are not used clinically very often, because if you have deficiency of corticosteroids, you can directly substitute the corticosteroids. There are plenty of forms of corticosteroid hormones available, synthetic in nature, like dexamethasone, cortisol, hydrocortisone, etc. Okay. Growth hormones and prolactin activate receptors of the JAK-STAT superfamily, whereas others can act on the G protein couple receptors. TSH, FSH, LH and ACTH activate G protein couple receptors. This is what I wanted to tell you. Schematic representation of these type of receptors. Here you can see the G protein couple receptors, and it can activate protein kinase A and protein kinase A by activating the second messengers like cyclic AMP or phospholipase C initiated DAG, diacylglycerol or IP3-DAG pathway. Alright. Now the insulin-like growth factors or tyrosine kinase receptors all are responsible. Insulin is responsible for stimulating this type of receptors. Now let's see the class. Hypothalamus, gonadotropin releasing hormone. We have agonistic action, gonadorelin. It's a mimetic GnRH mimic gonadorelin. Whereas antagonists, we have GnRH receptor antagonist and agonist. So lioprolide is a GnRH receptor agonist, but continuous administration instead of pulsatile administration. If you are administering GnRH agonist, GnRH receptor agonist in a continuous manner, example like lioprolide, it acts like antagonist. And of course, along with that, GnRH receptor antagonist is also available, example Granerelex. Then we have posterior pituitary oxytocin, agonistic action oxytocin. Then antagonist we have atosiban. When you come to vasopressin, you have vasopressin analogs having agonistic action like desmopressin, terlipressin, and many other congeners. And vasopressin has got two roles. One is vasoconstriction and the other one is water reabsorption from kidney, and that therefore it is also called as ADH. antagonistic action, like we have conivaptan. Okay. Then growth hormone, we have agonistic and antagonistic action. So agonistic action, somatropin, and we have mecasermin. Then antagonistic, we have octreotide and pegvisomant. Octreotide is actually a somatostatin analog, whereas pegvisomant is a growth hormone receptor antagonist. So difference between both has antagonistic, growth hormone antagonistic action, but the mechanism is different. As far as octreotide is concerned, somatostatin, it has got an inhibitory effect on growth hormone. So octreotide analog, it's a mimicking somatostatin mimicking agent, whereas pegvisomant is a growth hormone antagonist. Gonadotropins, we have LH and FSH. So mixed LH and FSH mimicking, we have menotropins secreted or isolated from the urine of the postmenopausal women. LH, we have agonists like lutropin and human chorionic gonadotropin. Then FSH, we have folitropin. So we don't have pharmacological implications of gonadotropin releasing or gonadotropin antagonist. Then prolactin, we have, as I already told you, it has an antagonistic effect by bromocriptine or dopamine. Now let's see which are the drugs which are commonly used. Some drugs which are commonly used in the therapeutic context, which mimic the anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary hormone, and also some of the drugs which can produce an antagonistic effect on the some of these receptors. The first one is somatotropin. Okay, so somatotropin is actually a growth hormone analog. It is a recombinant human growth hormone. So obviously you can anticipate, you can guess what could be the uses of these growth hormone analog. It's a growth hormone analog. It acts through growth hormone receptors to increase the production of insulin-like growth factor 1. So I told you, growth hormone is secreted from the anterior pituitary and it can act on the liver for the synthesis and secretion of insulin-like growth factor. So the same way, somatotropin is also an analog of growth hormone which mimic the role of growth hormone and increase the secretion of IGF, that is your insulin-like growth factor, and which can act on various parts of your body to increase the growth and development. So what are the applications? This is mainly, it is a replacement of growth hormone, and usually it is used in growth hormone deficiency in children with a short stature. See, even during the puberty, some children shows short stature. So such people may require growth hormone therapy. And wasting in HIV infection, because muscle development, apart from the testosterone, growth hormone has also got some anabolic role in the muscle protein. So definitely it can prevent the muscle wasting, usually in the catabolic conditions like HIV infection, because HIV infection is associated with the muscle wasting. So you can try somatotropin in such condition. Of course, in the conditions like dwarfism or in children with a short stature, you can try. Usually the route of administration is subcutaneous injection. In children, pseudotumor cerebral progression of scoliosis, edema and hyperglycemia. These are the problem. In adults, peripheral edema, myalgias and arthralgias of Notter with the use of somatotropin. All right. So these are some of the adverse effects. Now let's see IGF, insulin-like growth factor agonist. So this is actually mimic the actions of IGF. It is your insulin-like growth factor 1. It is a step down below the growth hormone, where we have discussed that growth hormone acts on the liver for the secretion of IGF-1. Now we have mimic IGF-1 analog. It is called mecasermin. It is a IGF-1 analog. It replaces the IGF, especially some people have deficiency of IGF-1 that is not responsive to exogenous growth hormone. See, if there is a IGF deficiency, there is no point of using any growth hormone analog, because growth hormone analogs or growth hormone is just intended to act on the liver and other areas where it increase the secretion of IGF-1. Now, if there is a deficiency of IGF, there is no point of giving insulin, there is no point of substituting growth hormone. Instead, you should give insulin-like growth factor therapy. So, it is also given subcutaneously. Hypoglycemia have noted as an adverse effects. Intracranial hypertension, increased liver enzymes like AST, ALT is also noted in these circumstances. Now, let's talk about somatostatin. So, somatostatin is secreted from the hypothalamus, where it inhibits the secretions of growth hormone. Now we have octreotide. Octreotide has got a wide variety of role. It is a mimicking drug of somatostatin, analogs of somatostatin. It acts on the somatostatin receptor, and it acts as a mimic analog or agonist. And somatostatin has got an inhibitory effect on growth hormone secretion. So definitely, see, growth hormone analogs may be used in the dwarfism, whereas acromegaly is a condition. You all learn that it is the increased body size and stature even after the puberty attained. So there will be prognathism and disproportionate growth of bones. Okay, it can be used. Octreotide can be used in this acromegaly conditions, and also it can be used in conditions like gigantism, where it can prevent the level of hormonal actions in the puberty, and acute control of bleeding from esophageal varices. And esophageal varices is very common in portal hypertension associated with chronic liver diseases like conditions like cirrhosis. So this is very, and of course various secretory conditions, diarrhea. Diarrhea can be well treated with octreotide. So what is the role? Actually, it has got a potent vasoconstriction role. Apart from the growth hormone inhibiting role, octreotide can have a vasoconstrictor role, and that's the reason why it is effective in esophageal varices in chronic liver diseases. And also in chronic liver diseases, it reduces the portal pressure. Okay, it can also, because in chronic liver diseases, the portal hypertension is very common, and it reduces the portal pressure, and that's the reason why it is very commonly used in esophageal varices. And of course, in diarrhea-like condition, it can arrest the watery excretion of stools. It is generally administered as subcutaneous injection, and long-acting formulations injected intramuscularly as depot preparations. Now, it can exert some sort of GI disturbances like abdominal colics, diarrhea, etc., and gallstones, bradycardia, cardiac conduction anomalies, ECG changes are noted with the octreotide. So please remember, octreotide has got some additional endocrine roles like esophageal varices and diarrhea, treatment of diarrhea, etc. So please note the point, octreotide. So please don't forget. Now we have growth hormone receptor antagonist, growth hormone receptor antagonist. So directly growth hormone receptors blockers like pegvisomant. So this can act on the wherever the growth hormone receptors like liver, your bone and other area of the body. It can completely block the growth hormone receptor signaling, and widely used in the treatment of acromegaly. And of course, it can also used in the treatment of what I told you in the previous slide, the conditions like gigantism. It is also available as subcutaneous injection. So most of these preparations are injections. Okay, and it has been noted that the continuous use of even few doses of pegvisomant can increase the AST and ALT level in the liver. Gonadotropins. Of course, gonadotropin will be discussed in detail elsewhere, but still you have to understand some of the roles of folitropin alpha and beta. Alpha is actually, it's a FSH receptor agonist. It is used in usually in or infertility treatment, especially for the ovulation, controlled ovulation, hyperstimulation in women in artificial insemination process, infertility due to hypogonadotropic hypogonadism in men. So in sometimes testosterone level can be reduced due to the secretion, decreased due to some abnormalities of the anterior pituitary. So that can be addressed. And one more is folitropin beta, which is a recombinant product with the same peptide sequences as folitropin alpha, but differs in its carbohydrate side chains. Urofolitropin is another one. It is human FSH purified from the urine of postmenopausal women. Another one is minotropin. All these I have not mentioned here. Minotropin is also as extract of the urine of postmenopausal women, which contains both FSH and LH activity. So these are the analogues of our FSH. So folitropin alpha, which is mentioned here, alpha and alpha also beta is there, urofolitropin and minotropin. So these are the analogues. And most of these drugs are used in controlled ovulation techniques, especially in artificial insemination process. And most of these preparations are given subcutaneously. The problems, especially the interactions and the toxicities, includes ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome and multiple pregnancies, because more than one ova can be released, and that can causes implantation, fertilization, implantation for the multiple multiple fetus formation. Gynecomastia in men due to oversecretion of these hormones, headache, depression, edema in both males and females. So this is about the FSH analogues. Now LH, what are the LH, luteinizing hormones analogues available? So we have human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG. This is a hormone usually secreted from the our corpus luteum, and also from the initial immediately after the implantation. So this is a LH receptor agonist. So HCG has got a maximum effect on LH receptor. This is used in initiation of ovulation during controlled ovulation hyperstimulation technologies or techniques for the artificial insemination process. Ovarian follicle development in women with hypogonadotropic hypogonadism, male hypogonadotropic hypogonadism. So basic principle of all these analogues are involved in the mimicking the FSH and LH from anterior pituitary, and it can directly act on the target sites, including your ovary and testis, Leydig cells and Sertoli cells. The Leydig cells is responsible for the secretion of testosterone, so it can stimulate. So that's a reason why it is used in hypogonadotropic hypogonadism males and females. Okay, it is generally administered as an IM. As we mentioned in the earlier slide, ovarian hyperstimulation is very common. Syndrome and multiple pregnancies in women, gynecomastia in men, headache, depression, edema in both sexes are also common, right? And apart from this, choriogonadotropin alpha, gonadotropin alpha, it's a recombinant form of HCG. So apart from human HCG, we also have choriogonadotropin alpha. We have lutropin, Lutropin, lutropin. It's also recombinant form, and minotropin, as mentioned, extract of the uterine postmenopausal. As we discussed in the previous slide, it has got both SH and LH. So most of these preparations are used in hypogonadism as well as in controlled ovulation process in infertility treatments. Okay. Now GnRH analogues, gonadotropin releasing hormone analogues. So what I wanted to tell you before talk about the analogues, these analogues can be used as antagonists as well as agonists. How? Usually GnRH gonadotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus, it is generally secreted in a pulsatile manner. So instead of pulsatile administration, drugs like leuprolide are administered in a continuous manner. It can act as an antagonist. Though it is a GnRH receptor agonist, it can act as an antagonist at your testis and ovary. So it can causes, therefore it can be used as ovarian suppression, okay, and used in controlled ovarian hyperstimulation and precocious puberty, pubertal adolescence, and advanced prostate cancer. So in advanced prostate cancer, it is used as a GnRH. It is used as an antagonist. Elsewhere, it is used as an agonist. It is available as IV preparation, subcutaneous preparation, IM, and also depot preparations. For the continuous administration, depot preparations are available. Now, headache, lightheadedness, nausea, injection, then hypersensitive reactions are the general adverse effects. So please remember, leuprolide is a GnRH analog. Being an analog, it can be used as an antagonist as well as an agonist. Now, how it is act as an antagonist? If you continuously administer, it can desensitize the receptors on the anterior pituitary, GnRH receptors on the anterior pituitary. Therefore, it can prevent the release of LH and FSH from the anterior pituitary. Clear? Now, if you are administering in a pulsatile manner, instead of blocking the GnRH receptors on the anterior pituitary, it can stimulate these receptors and stimulate the secretion of LH and FSH. Clear? Now, we also have exclusive GnRH antagonists. Though the GnRH analog can act as an antagonist, we also have GnRH exclusive antagonists like granurelix, abrarelix, cetrorelix, degarelix. So, cetrorelix, degarelix, DEGARELIX, and ganurelix. So, these are analog antagonists. Prevention of premature LH surge during controlled ovulation hyperstimulation. These techniques are used very commonly in the infertility treatments. Available as subcutaneous injection, and nausea and headaches are the major problem. So this is about the GnRH antagonists. And finally, we have dopamine agonists like bromocriptine and cabergoline. These are used in Parkinsonism well because these are dopamine agonists, and Parkinsonism is developed due to the deficiency of dopamine. So you can use it as agonist, dopamine receptor agonist, and you have seen that it can have a mimic inhibitory role on the secretion of prolactin. So therefore used in hyperprolactemia and Parkinson's disease. So it is administered orally because bromocriptine oral preparations are available. Hyperprolactemia, and it is also available as pessaries transvaginally. GI disturbances, orthostatic hypotension due to vasodilatation, headache, psychiatric disturbances, vasospasm, and pulmonary infiltration in high doses are the major adverse effects. So with this, we have covered almost all the anterior pituitary hormones. So we have started with the anatomy and physiology of the hypothalamus, both anterior and posterior, and of course hypothalamus, anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. Then we discussed the details of each hormones secreted from hypothalamus, anterior pituitary, and posterior pituitary. Later we discussed the pharmacological hormones. So for example, like the hormones from the which mimic the growth hormone, somatomedin, like preparation. Then preparations like somatostatin analog like octreotide. We discussed about the growth hormone antagonists like pegvisomant. We discussed about the LH, FSH analogs like urofolin, alpha, beta, and minotropin, etc. Then LH and FSH analogs. We discussed about the GnRH analogs like leuprolide, antagonist, granurelix, cetrorelix, abrarelix, and we emphasize the role of GnRH analog as both antagonist and agonist. And you know, the pulsatile actions of GnRH analogs act as a agonist, and the continuous administration can act as a antagonist. All right. Then we also discuss about the dopamine agonists like cabergoline and bromocriptine. So this is about the anterior pituitary hormone. I hope you understood the concept well. Fine. Let us have a discussion once you back to the normal classes. Thank you. And if you have any doubt, please let me know. We can have a discussion. Thank you.